Hello and welcome back to the Whatnauts review show number 303. My name is Kyle Springer and I am joined as always by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, I hope you're as happy as I am that we're on a dramatic episode.
We didn't even plan that.
I know, worked out perfectly. Happy spooky month, everyone out there.
Yes.
It's October, it's the fall. Hope you're having a blast. Drinking some warm cider or something like that, hot chocolate,
or some cold cider if it's still 85 degrees where you are, like it is here.
Yeah, it's still super hot here.
I hope this is our last hot weekend. I feel like it's on its way out to at least becoming just plain old warm.
Yeah, or like it's acceptable. It feels nice outside. I would like that.
Agreeable.
Yeah. I'm traveling to Richmond next weekend, so I think the temperature there is supposed to be like low 70s, which is like perfect. So I'm excited for all of that. But how are you? What's up in the life of Melissa?
I got up early this morning and I fit in a trip to the grocery store before recording. And since I was there early, I thought, I'm going to treat myself to a donut out of the donut case. The grocery store actually has pretty good donuts.
Sure.
And I got what I thought was an apple fritter, but I didn't hit any apples until like the very center of the thing.
Huh.
So the whole time I was like, is this just a cinnamon roll that was next to the apple fritters? It was a mystery until the very end. And then I found like the 3 tiny apple chunks. Like I must have gotten the last donut they made out of that batch of dough with the last little scraps of apple. I was it was good, but I was confused the whole time as to what I had grabbed and what I was eating.
It's not, hey, where's the cream filling? It's, hey, where's the apples? Where's the apples on my fritter? Good stuff. Good stuff. My weekend has been slow and uneventful so far, which has been great.
Nice.
Just playing video games and stuff like that. We're at Walmart yesterday picking up some odds and ends, and we always like to get those stickers for like a front window or something for like Halloween or Christmas, and we got some of those. So those are, I guess, the first Halloween decorations we've put up so far.
Okay. I had mine up a couple weeks ago, but you have a pretty spooky living room to begin with. It is very appropriate to the subject that we are talking about today. Fits right in with that aesthetic.
Yeah. We have like tarot cards and fortune teller kind of aesthetics in our living room, and that's a lot of fun. But like you said, yes, fits in nicely with what we are here to talk about today, which is Paul Dini's run on Zatanna from DC Comics. Man, we have had this on our list for quite a while.
Yes.
I think I pitched it at one point, or you. I at this
I found
point,
it.
I don't even remember who originally.
I remember, and it was me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Well, we've both wanted to do it for a long time, so we're finally getting to it here, and now I'm pretty excited. It's about 17, 18-ish issues.
It's a long boy. It's 438 pages.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons that kept us from getting to it for so long. And at the time we first looked it up, you could only buy it and it was like $20. But now, free on Hoopla. Thanks, public libraries. Yeah,
public libraries are great. Or if you're a subscriber to the DC Universe Infinite app, you can read it on there. We are, of course, talking about the like big collected edition, which actually has a couple other writers on there besides Paul Dini. They only come in for like a short, like 1-issue little side story here and there. So we also have Adam Beechin and Derek Friedolfs. Hopefully I am saying those names right. We have art by mainly Stephanie Rue. But then we also have Chad Hardin, Cliff Chain, Rick Rick Mays, Jesus Size, and Jamal Eigel. Yeah, bunch of different creators on this. And actually, the DC Comics website says the collected edition is $40, so
Oh,
even more
boy.
expensive than
Wow.
what we had thought. But yeah, thank God for Hoopla and public libraries and stuff like that, because we were finally able to dive into this book. Now, Melissa, reminds me, you might still remember why you wanted to pick Zatanna originally. And has that changed since then? Or what else have you become interested in with her?
I think the first time, I think I first showed up when I was looking for DC heroine solo titles. Because I realized in all the times we'd covered DC, it had been a lot of the boys. And I think from that list of suggestions, we wound up with those Starfire comics we read. And Zatanna, we were interested in. Did not want to spend that much time reading or that much money buying it and
Right.
put it on the back burner. And we dug it out this Halloween. We're like, now that we do these episodes once every 2 weeks and we plan them out farther in advance, we have time to read this thing. And I was going on a trip and I wanted something to read on the plane.
Yeah, worked out perfect.
Yep.
Worked out perfect. Yeah, Zatanna is an interesting character because she is a magician in a world of like superheroes and all of that stuff. And she knows how to do the magic we're used to, like card tricks and stuff like that, sawing your assistant in half and then being like, voila, back to normal. But she also can do like actual magic and is one of the more powerful magicians in the DC universe. Something else I've always really liked about her character is that all of her spells are just things said backwards. So if you know my magic spell was bring me Mountain Dew, I would have to say that backwards, right? And then my Mountain Dew would magically appear. But it's just I find that fun. Like you can still read and understand what the magic is. It's not some like obscure, maybe this Latin works, I don't know. But it's just like, oh, she just wants the chair to turn into a cage or something like that. It's simple
you can.
and it's fun.
She's making it all up on the spot. And like, this is what she's doing. This isn't just Zatanna says a magic spell, and the way we write that to you, the reader, is that we take what she's doing and turn it backwards. That is what she is doing. She has to learn how to spell things backwards.
Yeah.
She has her assistant like giving her flashcards so she can learn words like defenestrate and spell them backwards like on the spot. Because there's no preset spells, she can do anything. She does a lot of very creative magic, and there's not a lot of repetition. It's always something fresh and something fun.
Yeah. That's I think is neat because it is kind of unlimited. It's just what are you surrounded with? Well, what do you have to work with? You can do something with that, as opposed to one of my other favorite magicians from Marvel, Nico Minoru from the Runaways. She can say things normally because of the staff that she has, but when she uses a spell, she can no longer use it ever again. So she has to constantly come up with new ways to say the same thing. And writers have gotten around that in different ways, some that work more like well than others. But it's still it's an interesting challenge, but it's very limiting, right? Of just like you're kind of stuck with it. It feels like you're real constricted. So it's nice that you can just like, I'll just say whatever I want backwards. That's all.
Yeah.
It's good. It's fun. Yeah, synopsis for a little bit of what we read here. I feel like if you have yet to dive into the kind of dark magic side of the DC
Mhm.
universe, this is a pretty easy book to start with. It's
Yeah.
they name drop a couple people or previous books in the DC universe, but you don't need to know like what those books are to understand what's happening
Mhm.
in this. So you
Mhm.
can pick it up and enjoy it pretty easily.
And
Um,
it's pretty insular to Zatanna.
yes,
Like,
yeah,
we other characters are mentioned or seen very briefly, but, it's not like there's a whole issue where she hangs out with the Flash or something. It's really her.
yeah. Indeed, indeed. Yeah, so we pick up with Zatanna or Zatanna. You asked me that before we started recording. I've always said Zatanna, um, but I think Zatanna also works. I don't know.
I I remember seeing her around. Zatanna is a character who if you've seen her once, you remember her. She's very distinct looking. And my brother would watch the Justice League cartoons. He used to work in a comic book shop. So I'd seen her around, but I did not specifically remember any clips of the cartoon very well to remember how they pronounced it. And I'm worried I'm going for the very Midwestern route with the hard A here.
Yeah. But yeah, we pick up with Zatanna. She's doing one of her stage shows. And pretty quickly after that, we get introduced to a police detective. I believe his name was Colton. Is that right? I
Sure.
don't remember. And we learn that there was a murder that happened recently, and they need Zatanna to come in and inspect because very obviously there was some magic involved, and the police are a little bit out of their depth here. And so yeah, they get to the scene and people are all changed into animals and all sorts of stuff has
Mhm.
happened here. And this is where they learn that Brother Knight is trying to take over the underworld in San Francisco, which is where
Mm.
they are. And I feel like that's a pretty interesting jumping off point of like, hey, you've seen other like superhero stories where one of the bad guys wants to be like, now I'm in charge of the criminal underworld here. But this time it's a magical
Yeah.
character and not just like I'm a gangster and not therefore I'm a criminal warlord. Um,
Mhm.
so I thought that was neat, but the story ends up bouncing around, and we get a number of adventures with Zatanna. We get some stuff where she's trying to outsmart a demon in Las Vegas. We get a story of her dealing with a past trauma and a marionette that she's having some trouble dealing with. All sorts of fun stuff here, and we do end up kind of circling back around to Brother Knight by the
Mhm.
end of the book here. But this book jumps around a few places, which I enjoyed. What did you think,
Good
Melissa?
good mix of tones. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun. Zatanna's a nice character to get to spend this much time with. I didn't know much about her. I think I thought she was just magician themed as
Mm,
opposed to being an actual working magician who has shows like every night and is constantly on the go. That is her job. It's being a magician and being like a superhero sorceress a little bit on the side when somebody really needs her and it can only be a magic solution to the problem.
yeah.
She's mostly a career woman, which is not what I expected. I really liked that angle that she is this work that she takes very seriously. She's very well known for it. And it is both an obstacle in her life where she has to fly all over the country, deal with all of these people, have all these things prepped, down to things like, my new rabbit isn't cooperating. I can't pull him out of a hat.
Yeah.
But other times the superhero stuff she has to do is like, somebody paid me to work this private party. I can't let him down, or I have to do a benefit at the children's hospital. I take my work seriously. I can't just fly away from this stuff, which is not something I've seen many other superheroes do. Like Clark Kent never seems to be like, I have to get back to this Daily Planet staff meeting.
It's just Clark Kent disappears and he's on the story, right? He comes back with like, but I have an article. Here you go. It's like, all right. We'll forgive you. Yeah. It's an interesting conundrum because her career is on the line every single time she has to go off and do something else.
Or not really on the line. It seems like she's this massive star where, she's not on some sort of fragile bubble there, but she takes it seriously and does not want to let people down. It's not like her reputation is ruined if she has to cancel a show, but she just very sincerely does not want to.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff with all of that. Yeah, Zatanna, even though I grew up watching the cartoons and stuff like that, Zatanna is also a character for me that I'm not as familiar with. So this was an interesting kind of debut for her, so to speak, in my mind. And yeah, it's fun because Paul Dini, of course, wrote a bunch for all the DC animated cartoons, Batman, especially. So he's very familiar with all of these DC characters. Did you by chance get to read the foreword that Paul Dini wrote?
I think I did.
So in this, and this is something that I must have known at some point because I read another book of his where I think it comes up, but his wife is a magician. And so it feels like he has this kind of intimate look into what a magician's life is actually like, and someone who is doing shows and stuff like that. And what are the behind the scenes like here? And I think that's why the career side of Zatanna really works here. He just has that extra little tidbit, right?
Yeah. And even if it's not a career that most people have, or that is structured like a career that most people have, her having this work life does make her feel very grounded and relatable in a way that she might not have been if all she did was gallivant through various dimensions, saving the world every other day.
Yeah, indeed. Cool. Is there any other kind of things you want to mention about this spoiler free before we get into housekeeping and such?
No, let's go on.
All right.
Let us proceed.
Yeah, well, we will take a quick break for some housekeeping. Excuse me. And when we come back, we will dive in a little bit further to Zatanna. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast. We hope you're enjoying it. If you didn't know, we make multiple different shows here at the Whatnauts, and a lot of hard work goes into making them, so we would love it if you check them all out. But none of this is possible without your support. Head over to patreon.com/thewhatnauts and you can get access to over 40 hours of exclusive content, including our Patreon first podcast, The Pilots Club, when you sign up at our $3 tier. Of course, there is a free version of the Pilots Club available, but episodes are exclusive to our Patreon for 2 years before they hit the free feeds. If you're interested in buying merch, we have shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more for sale over at thewhatnauts.com/store. Another great way to help us out is by subscribing and leaving a nice rating and review on your podcasting app of choice. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel for video versions of the show, trailer reactions, and live streams. And lastly, you can always find out more information about the shows we make on our website, thewhatnauts.com. All right, we are back. Once again, a big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters. We love you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much indeed. Over on the Pilots Club for this month, for Spooky Month, we dove into the world of Junji Ito and we watched the first episode of Uzumaki. Super exciting. We were not planning to do that originally. We were still going to do a show based on Junji Ito's work, but we switched it at the last second. So Junji Ito, some great stuff for Halloween to dive in there. I think the second episode is out today.
Oh, right. Yes.
So yeah, I'm excited to jump back in the world of Uzumaki after this. So good stuff with that. Over on the free version of the Pilots Club, we released our episode of Mockingbird Lane. This is kind of a modern day remake of the Munsters. It's unfortunately, I don't think it got picked up to a show,
it's
right?
Just a pilot.
Just a pilot. I think they aired it as like a Halloween special at one point, is what you had said, Melissa. But yeah, just a fun try at a modern day Munsters. And it had a lot to work with in there. I feel like I remember saying I could see why it didn't get picked up, but there was a lot of really interesting ideas.
Yeah, it's from Brian Fuller, who created Pushing Daisies and Hannibal and lots of stellar TV.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So go check that out. That's available on the free feed of the Pilots Club. But then right here over on this show, last month we did Shame Timber, as we normally do. We got to cross off 2 movies off our lists of shame. Melissa, you had Looney Tunes back in action, and I had Zodiac. So,
which is very funny that for 2 episodes in a row, we're doing a San Francisco set title that starts with a Z.
With a Z, yeah.
These might have been the only things in the world we could have picked to meet that requirement.
Indeed. Zodiac was a lot of fun. That's what we did last episode. What a great movie that one is. So go check that stuff out. Over on the Captain's Log, Melissa, you got to tell me all about your recent trip to Disney World and all the stuff you got up to over there. We also got to talk about Megalopolis and the Substance, which I still have not seen. They finally took it off the app, so there's no showings near me. So I either will have to like purchase regular tickets somewhere else at like a non-Regal theater that's still playing it, or just wait till it's out on streaming. Yeah, right. Or one of those ones that do the like $2 tickets, but it's a little bit older movies, right? Something.
Do you still have one of those in your area?
I'm sure we do, but I don't actually know.
Theoretically, every city might.
Right? Yeah. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, so we got to up to some fun stuff over on the Captain's Log. But yeah, that is about it for housekeeping right now. So let's get back into spoilers for Zatanna.
Kyle, I have a question for you.
Yeah, bring it on.
Or more of a statement. If somebody asked me, who's the most famous female magician you can name, I probably would have said Zatanna. And then if somebody said, okay, no, but name a real woman, I don't know if I have a name I would have come up with.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there aren't women in magic. You mentioned Paul Dini's wife, Misty Lee, is a magician. now that you sent me like a little article, just like a little blog blurb. And now that I see her face and I see her name, she is familiar to me. I know I have heard of Misty Lee somewhere, but in the time when we had big blockbuster magicians, I
Chris
don't
Angel.
remember.
Yeah.
well, there's like sort of the 90s run. You got your like Copperfield, and then you've got the later run, where you've got like Chris Angel and Darren Brown, where things are more like mind games or mind freaks, if you will.
Yeah.
I can't recall a woman breaking through in that memorable of a way. Again, not saying it hasn't happened, but as somebody who just has a cursory knowledge of this thing, of this field, this art form, even as much as I admire it in theory, I feel like you do need to dig a little bit deeper to find its most prolific women.
Yeah. Indeed. I certainly couldn't have named. I would have been in the same boat as you. Zatanna? I don't know.
Right. I asked a friend last night, and he's like, Agatha all along? I'm like, no, still also a fictional character.
She's real in my heart, okay? That's what matters. Magic is real.
Which is also nice timing, again, that we're watching, we read this comic while Agatha is airing, while there is this very witchy focus in comic book, movie, and TV.
Yeah, and that's I think the flip side of that coin that you started to get at is I feel like when it comes to magical women, it's just assumed they're a witch, right? And I don't think I would put that word on Zatanna at all to describe her. I don't feel like she's a very witchy character.
No.
But she is doing magic and stuff. And I think that's also interesting to see, right?
She doesn't do some of the more archetypically witchy things. Like, there's never a potion, there's not really rituals. There's not really talismans. It is more of the spoken word, the saying things backwards. She can do a tremendous amount of things, but with a much more stripped down tool set.
Yeah, and that's not to say that stuff does not exist in her world, right? But her magical powers don't. They're not like, I know just how to make this perfect potion. I just need to go gather the ingredients, and that's it. That stuff is still out there, but right, it's just not her. So I think that is interesting. Let's jump in here with this first kind of story about this magical gangster, so to speak, taking over the underworld. What did you think of this introduction to her?
I had heard the name Brother Knight somewhere, or at least it makes enough sense that it didn't prickle at me. I'm like, yeah, of course there's a Brother Knight. Why shouldn't there be?
There's a
He's
Doctor
got a very
Midnight,
cool
a Brother Knight.
Doctor Strange, a Hugo Strange.
Yeah,
of course
exactly.
There's a Brother Knight. He seems natural here. He's got a very cool, very creepy design. And I liked the ultimate turn, which is that he's the he was like a 1960s like psychedelic guy who became a little culty, and then a lot culty, and then fully a supernatural being. He just kept escalating. And when they eventually remove all supernaturalness from him, he's back to being a guy. Although now just still like a very creepy, decrepit looking guy. But they're like, well, now that you're a fully human again, we can legally punish you. And now you have to go to human jail.
Yeah. I thought that is interesting too, because that's another way that Zatanna's world kind of conflicts with the regular world. I guess that's the way to say that, right? Of like, someone does a magic spell, it's like, I mean, I guess there's destruction of property. Maybe he killed someone, right? But like, what law do you really have that says
Exactly.
you can't do a magic spell? That
Yeah.
right?
And when Detective Colton approaches Zatanna because he thinks there's a case with some magic in it, she's like, these things don't really play well with each other. Like, your laws are not laws over magic. Like, there's only so far I can help you, and there's only so much you're going to get out of this. Maybe I can defeat someone, but we're never going to have enough to convict them and put them in jail the way
Yeah.
you would with a normal criminal.
It's like, what do you mean the victim was turned into a toad? That
Mhm.
doesn't make sense, right? Can't put that on the stand. I now call the toad. It's like, no,
Yeah,
I'm
and
a human woman now again.
And what we see in this book is not necessarily street level, but not on a massive cosmic scale. Like, I don't think I've heard of a Superman story where a law enforcement is like, hey, Superman, help us catch this alien. And he's like, you can't put an alien in human jail. That's not how that goes.
He
Like,
has
she's
his
just-
own way to deal with aliens.
That's
and
called
stuff,
the
yeah.
Phantom Zone, and I do it.
Yeah.
Don't bring there's no jury. It's me, and I put him in the Phantom Zone. Like, Zatanna's at just the right level of scale to have the sort of interesting interaction with law enforcement and how it can and cannot apply to what she is doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that fascinating. I would love, like, so like we had said, the book kind of jumps around into a number of different stories here. And when it first started to kind of transition away from this story, I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed of like, I actually would kind of like to see this more like street level crime story that intersects with magic. And how does, because like that formula is one I feel like we've seen a lot in comics and TV, in movies, all sorts of stuff. But then to bring like to switch up that formula just a little bit by bringing in this magical side is like, oh, that's kind of new. That's neat. I like this. Let's explore that. And unfortunately, I don't think the book explores it to a sufficient amount, right? But we get that we get that taste. We get that she is a working woman, but she also consults with the police. Maybe she consults with the Justice League every now and then when there's some big threat. So Zatanna ends up feeling like a woman pulled in 20 different directions, right? And she's always exhausted and just like, I just need a bath. Like,
yes,
I just want to relax. Like, please let me sleep. And I kind of like that too. And then once I started to read the other stories and like understand that like she usually does not get the time to just sit and think with one story or one thing that's happening. That there is like, all right, now she's over here, now she's in this magical dimension, and now she's in Las Vegas, and now she's in San Francisco, and that it's just like, whoa, okay, sure, so that's her, okay, that makes sense. Now I get
she's
these
on
other
the move.
stories, so I did like just as an arc that it did kind of circle back around to Brother Knight, who I guess somehow, which was unanswered in this book, got his magical powers back after they had kind of been taken away. It
he just
seemingly
believed hard enough.
Right. It seemingly happens when the marionette picked up that stone. We got like a flash, like kind of like right around that time of like, and something's up with Brother Knight again. Weird. Not that is the answer, but
all this stuff's connected in weird ways. You know, Zatanna's mansion is full of weird artifacts.
Yeah.
I like that Brother Knight, as he is gaining more supernatural power when he is in prison, he now has this thrall over some of his fellow inmates. And in order to escape, he like a bunch of them like follow him in a mob to the perimeter of the prison. And then he just dissolves their skin and takes their bones and makes a ladder out of their bones and just climbs a bone ladder out of the prison. And that's how he escapes.
Just stepping on the little people, right?
A ladder made entirely out of, and it's all like arm and leg bones. You know, you can't make a ladder out of like a little phalange. Yeah. So I guess all that stuff's just like a pile on the ground.
Yeah, he does that. The police that come with the attacked dogs, he turns the dogs rabid, stuff like that. So yeah, he ends up just kind of walking away. And we don't get to see what happens next. I guess you'd have to continue on with whatever the next issues are. I'm not even sure what issues of Zatanna's run this collects, or did they restart the book after that, or is it like here's issue 18 after that written by someone else, and here's I'm not sure exactly, but. Yeah, that's not to say the book didn't feel like it had an ending, because this run definitely did feel like that. But just there's more adventures out there for Zatanna.
Yeah.
Like we keep coming back to, the book jumps around. Was there a particular story that stood out to you that jumped out at you and was like, this one is awesome?
You already know the answer. It's the puppet one.
Yeah?
Yes.
The puppet one was great.
I do like the whole period where she's in Los Angeles for... It's obviously their version of the Magic Castle, the real magicians hangout, this place that you can only get into if you are a magician, like a licensed magician that like joined their guild. Or like if you know a magician, if you're an invited guest, or if you get a room at the attached hotel, then you can get into the Magic Castle. Mm-hmm. It's, and there's no photos or videos. Like I've heard about the Magic Castle. I would love to go, but it is this like mysterious, rarefied place.
Right. Yeah.
And in Los Angeles, there's that, the non-specific DC Comics version of that. And then also they're adding a museum, and Zatanna goes to oversee some of the stuff at the museum. And they've got a bunch of old artifacts from her father, who was, that's who she learned her trade from. Not just her sorcery magic, but her like stage magic. He was a practicing magician, and she knew all these other magicians who he worked with that were like uncles to her. And there's all these assorted artifacts from each of them, and they've still got a little bit of their magic left on them, and all these assorted pieces just like form a phantom. It's like here's boots and pants and a cape and glasses and a hat and gloves, and it all forms like a clothing homunculus, and like travels through Los Angeles.
Yeah. What a weird start to that story of just like, clothes come to life.
And like all the clothes are individually talking to each other, and they're like, are we really going to go along with what Hat wants? But
right.
I don't know. Hat's more powerful than us. We're just pants.
But after Zatanna deals with that, she ends up like accepting some kind of award, making some speech at the opening of this museum. And there's an exhibit of these marionettes.
Yes.
In the building. And she's kind of creeped out by marionettes. She says like, yeah, I really don't like them for some reason. I hate them. I freak out.
And for a woman who has seen so many terrors and has such cosmic power, this is the one thing that freaks her out. It's just marionettes and puppets.
Yeah. And so she is like trying to deal with that and understand with that. And her spiritual therapist. I don't know what the correct terminology would be for that. But basically implies like, hey, this seems like it's stemming from some past trauma.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to figure that out on your own. I can only tell you to like go reflect on that, go meditate. And so Zatanna ends up realizing, yeah, there was something that happened in my childhood, but I had a mental block on this thing. I need to figure that stuff out. I need to unblock myself. So she calls on the help of this little sleep paralysis demon, this little nightmare guy named Fusili or something like that. And he helps her to get to lift this mental block, and she realizes that it was her father that erased her memory of this traumatic event where this guy had basically taken her hostage and held a knife to her throat, all of that stuff. And the father had turned him into a puppet, this like horrifying act of like, I'm not killing you per se, but I'm basically killing you, right? Like, I'm
condemning you to a life of being trapped in a marionette. So somebody else must control you if you are ever to move or live again. And you're just going to be put away in a box like in Toy Story 2.
And Zatanna does not like what her father did. She was like, but like, you can't do that, right? Like, you have to turn him in to the authorities or something. And yeah, he's just like, yeah, let's have you forget that and go to sleep.
Right. But like, she looks back on it and says, my father was a great man, but like all men, he is fallible. I have a block because he made me forget. And he made me forget because he just didn't want me to have that pain of like almost being killed by a mad puppeteer.
Yeah.
And seeing what it was he had done that he could not undo. And he didn't want me to look at him that way. And it is something she comes to terms with. And it is an interesting facet to the character of her dad, who comes back in several flashbacks and as a ghost at least once. It seems like he's always popping up in some form. She's never completely rid of her dad.
Yeah, that's something that is a major part of her character, is her relationship with her father. Not only like teaching her the magic and stage craft, but they have a good relationship. And it's sometimes they have to deal with this thing. Well, you betrayed me this one time, but I maybe you had your reasons, or I just don't understand it now, or I don't know the whole story, or who knows what. And yeah, they always have to like work through some of that stuff. That's also what I remember of her times in the cartoons and stuff like that. But yeah, so this guy gets condemned to be a puppet, in which he cannot move on his own. He can't really think. He can't really focus. He's just in this like clouded state as this puppet. But when Zatanna comes into eyesight of this marionette, it kind of springs to life and is like, holy shit, that's the kid. That's the kid that I held the knife to. Oh my goodness. And it kind of wakes him up. And so now he's this like living, moving puppet. And yeah, Zatanna is equally like freaked out that this puppet is haunting her and attacking her, and stuff like that. But then also trying to escape and like figure out what's happening here, because the guy's like, wait, that's not like exactly what happened. There's more to the story here. And he
tries to spin a yarn that the show promoter, because like her and her dad were doing magic as part of this big vaudeville night where this puppeteer guy was also one of the acts they had. And he's like, the show promoter was like trying to bilk me out of my money. And, I was angry and I pulled a knife on him, and then things just got out of hand and I'm innocent here. And seemingly not true. No.
Yeah, Zatanna still is like, something's up with this. I don't know if that's the full story still. But yeah, then she finds out that no, he was just always an awful person. He got caught trying to steal money from the safe. Killed this guy, and then Zatanna caught him killing that guy. So that's how this whole thing spiraled out of control. Um, yeah, but like it the whole time this story, I feel like we sat with it for 3 or 4 issues. It was one of the longer stories in this run here. But we get to see the inside of Zatanna's mansion, how big her library is, her father's like office space in the basement, all of this stuff. How did you like the design of her house here?
It was cool. In the final issue, the one with the little demon boy, uh that you go into her library and it's so tall. It's like a really impressive, like big splash panel of scale with just this tiny demon boy wandering into a library that's like 6 stories tall, miles and miles and miles of books. It is a really impressive image. Uh, I love a good lair, and I'm happy that she gets to be in on this too. It's not just Batman and his big penny and Superman and his tiny city.
Yeah, she has like a talking dodo bird,
Right.
and taxidermied animals that can also still
Yes.
talk.
I liked
and
them.
stuff like
Those
that.
feel like such a throwback. They reminded me of Mary Poppins, and she's
Mhm.
got that like parrot head on her umbrella handle that keeps talking to her.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, her house on the outside looks like a pretty stereotypical like San Francisco row house kind of
Mm.
thing. But yeah, when you get inside and go into the basement and stuff like that, it's huge. It's larger on the inside than it is on the outside, which we love here. So
And and I love just her big cushy 4-poster bed.
yeah.
That's it's not a magical center of her living space in their traditional sense, but that's where she always wants to be. And they do draw it like so sumptuously. Like, yes, don't we all want to lie in a bed like this?
Exactly. Even John Constantine was like, "Oh yes, the bed."
Right, we
But
start
as
with
naked
Constantine.
John Constantine hungover.
I know very little about Constantine. I think maybe somebody told me he was British, but because
Yes.
that's not how Keanu Reeves sounds in the trailer for Constantine I saw once, I forget that.
Yeah.
I forget that he's not just stone-faced Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, he's an asshole all the time. That he's snarky, but not in like a Peter Parker like I got jokes kind of way. He's just kind of mean all the
Yeah.
time. He always just kind of fucks everything up, as you could kind of see by the brief time that we saw him.
Yes.
Just completely trashed the house.
Right.
Right. And yeah, he's a fun character to read for sure. But yeah, I think it was just neat to see like the magical spaces within her own home, and what all these artifacts are that are hidden away here, what all these books are. That was really neat. It wasn't the book that the little kid ended up stealing. It was something about like the pathways between dimensions or something like that, right?
Something which was like the first specific magic book we got, and it's like the last issue in this whole story. So that's another traditionally witchy thing that Zatanna does not have. You see her with this massive library, but she doesn't have a dark hold. She doesn't have like one book that holds all this tremendous power that she gets all her spells from.
Yeah. But it's, yeah, we get to see the puppet running around this space and trying to just snatch up all these artifacts to undo his spell, which it kind of backfires, and then Zatanna ends up puppet sized for a while.
Fun.
There's it was just it was a great story that was equally, like you said, it was a good time, it was fun, but also there's some creepier like things to that story too, of just like, I think I see a puppet standing in the back of the crowd here, just like, that's weird, I don't like that. So yeah, there's for as much of like a dark magic side that DC had, when it deals with magic, it is typically like a darker magic side. I felt like this was even like a pretty light touch for that. We weren't really into really dark stuff. We got glimpses, but Zatanna's such a lighter character that right, it felt a little bit more palatable.
Yes.
And it's not like, let's go straight to John Constantine and see all the dark, sad shit that he's up to.
Yeah, there's some darker stuff, like when you find out that Detective Colton is Brother Knight's son, and that Brother Knight had like cursed this innocent girl to like carry this devil baby, and she believed that in order that she needed to like purify and kill both her and the baby so that they would leave this life and immediately go to heaven, and she carved like crosses all over her and the baby's skin.
Right.
There's brief, very dark episodes in this.
Yeah, absolutely. It felt like a good introduction, right? Of, hey, here's the magic side of the DC universe. Here's some glimpses into some of the darker stuff. Here's a few other characters, right? Is this your first time being introduced to the Spectre?
Again, that's one of those things that's, if I didn't already know it, it just feels like a natural part of the universe that I just agree to.
Sure,
there's a Spectre. I don't know that there isn't.
Yeah. Like it introduces you to characters like that, where if you wanted to be like, I kind of want to see what John Constantine is up to, you can read his adventures and stuff. If you want to check out some books with the Spectre in it, you can read him and his adventures. I think we saw Dr. Fate's helmet in the truck of all the artifacts for the museum or something. We saw that stuff. Like, you can go read about Dr. Fate and all that stuff. So there's like,
is that
entryways.
Timothy Dalton or Pierce Brosnan? Which of them is Dr. Fate?
Pierce Brosnan.
Neither of them? Okay.
Yeah.
Who's Timothy Dalton?
I don't know. He was in Doom Patrol, right? He's the one.
Yes. What's
Doom
that
Patrol.
Guy's name?
Oh God, what is his name? Not the Professor. Is that what they call him? He's not really like magic related though. Okay. He's just like, I'm a weirdo scientist.
Freak related.
Yeah. I'm just gonna do weirdo science experiment stuff and. Yeah.
The one bit of DC Comics continuity that I was confused about is that Zatanna is talking about some big world-saving mission she did go on recently with the Justice League, and she refers to a Ralph and a Sue. And then somebody is trying to marry her and trapping her in a mind prison, and she like imagines that she's at this beautiful wedding and all the other members of the Justice League are there, and Ralph right. Who are they?
Ralph and Sue Dibney. This is it's the elongated man. If I'm correct,
is that
see here.
Is the elongated man the same as the plastic man?
No. They are different characters, but basically the same power set.
Okay.
The elongated man comic book character. Ralph Dibney. It's the Fantastic Four super power. He can stretch, right? All that stuff.
From the name, I can imagine what it is that he does. Yes.
Yeah. And I don't remember if his wife, does Sue have powers, or is she just a regular woman? Regular girl.
Powers regular.
Yeah, right. Powers. Yeah, human. I don't know.
Normal
Here we
type.
go. Sue Dibney. Does she have powers at all? Associated with mind management, came blah blah. 0 hour. Okay. So I don't think she really has powers, but she is kind of the like calming presence to Ralph's kind of chaos. He's kind of a mess.
It's tough being long.
Right. He's just kind of a mess. He's forgetful. He's always just gung ho about like, well, we should do this. We should go off, and he's just kind of forgetting his responsibilities and stuff like that. And so she kind of helps to unstretch him and bring him back to like, no, let's stay here for just a sec. But she in one of the crises, I believe it's identity crisis. I could be wrong on that. She gets murdered, and that is like the main, like it is a murder mystery of who killed Sue Dibney, and stuff like that. So that is what I think she was referring to, which is a story from 2004, and I think this Zatanna comic was 2007-ish, 2010.
Okay.
Is when this was. So like, yeah. So there was like, they were like, it's fairly recent, right? You remember that big DC Comics event where she got murderized.
Okay.
So that's what they were referring to. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. But that's kind of what I was mentioning at the start of like, even with something like this, you don't need to understand the events of Identity Crisis to know what's happening in this book. It's just this offhanded comment of like, oh yeah, strange that she was in my dream considering what happened in this other book. Oh well, moving on, right? Like,
yes.
So yeah, I like that it has that stuff where it's like, yeah, what is that story? And you can be like, oh, let me go check it out and figure it out. So good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, what else? I liked, what was the name of her kind of assistant character? Mikey? Let's talk about
Mikey's
Mikey.
Great. Mikey seems like a great supportive friend. She's Zatanna's like carpenter. She physically makes the things Zatanna uses on stage. And I like that that's part of it. Zatanna can't just magic everything into existence. Somebody has to build things. She has to have and none of what she does is a secret. Everybody knows she has magic powers. And you know, it's only like guys who are jerks who take her out on dates. Like, what? You can't just magic away the check? You can't just pay for it with magic? For the most part, it's like not a conflict in her life. People expecting her to do things in a magic way. And she's like, I can't. That's not how that works. People do have to build things for her.
Yeah, it's kind of a running theme throughout the book where that question comes up. Like, how come you can't just magic a Lamborghini out of nowhere, right? How come you can't just be like, voila, money? And she's
there's
like, that's
no
not
real,
how it works. Like,
there's like a rule of karma. Like, if you try and get greedy, it'll come back around. The bill comes due. Something bad will happen to you. So she's like, I could, but I don't want those consequences. And there's not like a law, but there's sort of like an abstract, like karmic force that will come for her.
Yeah. And it's the way I kind of read those situations is that it seemed like people just kind of assumed that that's what she did. She would just magic away all of the stuff, or magically summon something, and people don't necessarily ask it; they just kind of assume it until they get into a more intimate setting where she is on a date. Like, oh, so you can't just magic the check away? And she's like, no, you idiot. Like, that's not how it works, right? So yeah, that was a neat kind of theme in there. Like, there is soft limits to my power, right?
Yes,
there
yes.
is, like, I can't just do anything, but I am pretty darn powerful.
or like, I could do anything if I wanted to, but I'm a good person, so I'm not going to.
Exactly.
That's what her limit is just her own moral code.
But yeah, that leads to Mikey then being like, hey, I could make, like, magically summon all of these pieces that I need, but that's also like, I'm using them for my career to get me money, so I don't, that, like, it just, let's have you make all of the stuff instead here.
She does a great job. I like Mikey's the only one who's like a recurring character, but you do see lots of staff members around Zatanna. She has a whole team that helps her put her shows on, and it seems like she does value them. You know, she does surround herself with good people that she cares about.
Yeah.
So even if we don't get the closest look at it, I like that that's there. I like Mikey as the symbol of that. Mikey's very smart. She's very canny about this. She is an excellent carpenter, and she's spent enough time around Zatanna to, like, know how to do certain things and and how to get her out of a pickle. Like, she does have to disguise herself, and she's disguised herself as, like, a makeup artist. Who is she getting close to? What was that story?
That was also in the puppet story. When Zatanna had been changed into the puppet, she had been missing, in air quotes, for like a month, and Mikey finally started realizing, like, okay, this is strange. Her house hasn't changed, but there's these weird, like, string on the bed. I thought it was just maybe she had a real fun weekend. But
this is like marionette string. That's weird.
And it hasn't moved in, like, the week, so she hasn't been here. Something's up. And yeah, she finally realizes that once she sees the puppet on TV, of like, oh no, that's Zatanna. She's been changed into a puppet. Something's up here. I need to go track down this other guy and save her.
And so that's when she disguises herself as this makeup artist to sneak in and like prep that evil puppeteer for a TV appearance. And once she's in there, she can incapacitate him and, like, save Zatanna.
Yeah. Which I liked that interaction when she finally saved her, and she was just like, what are you wearing? Like, your disguise is ridiculous.
She's just wearing, like, her work boots, her overalls. She's got a baseball cap on. She's just, like, a very sort of no nonsense tomboy. And they have to get ready. Like, she's going to be Zatanna's +1 to accept some award at this magic museum. And she shows up wearing a suit and her work boots and her ball cap. And then Zatanna's like, you can't wear that. And instead of taking the work boots and, like, the ball cap away, she puts her in a dress. And I'm like, well, what was wrong with the suit? Seems like she's a suit girl. That's okay. Yeah. That was the one thing I didn't like. The one thing in the book that felt kind of dated. That Mikey can't just wear a suit if she wants.
Yeah, at least, like, make it a tuxedo for her, and like, maybe get rid of the hat, like some nicer shoes, stuff like that. But the book does not comment on her sexuality or anything like that. But it that is maybe the one hint into, like, well, maybe she's a lesbian or something. I don't know. Who cares?
There's many ladies who wear a suit very well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Ladies of all stripes.
Yeah, but Mikey is great. I liked, though, when she does, because her disguise as this makeup artist is, like, very, like, tight, like, small cami shirt, tits out, like, small Daisy Dukes, and Zatanna immediately is like, oh, I know you hate that outfit. Like, Oh my god. Just like I know you hate this. Let's get you home and get you changed.
Right, you can put all of your denim back on, all your flannel. You'll be safe again.
That was a great exchange. I loved that. Man, yeah, that was fun. How did you feel about Zatanna's cousin, her younger cousin?
Yeah.
This is also something I did not know about Zatanna.
No,
I did not know that she had another cousin working in magic.
But makes sense. His name is like Zachary Zatanna. Yeah. He's like a cousin on her dad's side who also has the magic powers, which does feel like so classic comic booky. That she has this like young sidekick just sort of flopping around sometimes. He's in the same line of work as her. He's also like a sorcerer and a stage magician, but is more of a playboy, doesn't have the same work ethic.
Right.
But is also like very desperate for her attention. Like they kind of came up. Yes. You know, she's a role model in his life. He looks up to her. He's like, you never make time to come see my shows. And when we were kids, we were like thick as thieves. Where are you now? And there is some story where she like gets wrapped up in something and she's like, I have to get to Zachary. This is like the one thing I truly owe somebody in my life. I can't miss this. Just showing up to see him do tricks in Reno.
Yeah. This was I believe the second story that we got here where the demon Mammon is trying to take over this casino, or like has taken over this casino for years and years, something like that. But yeah, she promises to go to her cousin's show, and then at the last second, the owner of the casino, under the influence of this demon, like magically forces her to go on this date with him and start like flirting with him and stuff like that, because the demon is after Zatanna's soul.
Right. And he convinces her to marry him. He like puts a spell on her where she's like, her mouth is saying one thing and inside her brain she's like, I don't mean that. I don't even know this guy.
Yeah.
Right. And she's like, I know I'm under some spell, but I can't make my mouth say the words to break the spell. How do I get it out of my own brain here? That was a compelling story. I like when she starts hallucinating the demon Mammon everywhere. Then they just put that scary demon face on just every person around. That's effective.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting one. But like, I don't know by the end of this book how I really felt about the cousin, because by the end of that story, she does make it out to one of his shows. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's still, she's only been to like that one show out in like the past 20 years or who knows what. But when he shows up again later in the book, it feels like he's back to this kind of, I love you and I respect you and I look up to you, but I still have this chip on my shoulder because you don't pay attention to me enough. And it felt strange that like we kind of got that full circle arc where it's like, oh, now she's finally made it out to his show, but then here he is again, kind of being a jerk.
You did make a point that she went to one show.
Right.
And like when they try and perform together, she's mad at him. She's like, you're missing cues. You're misreading lines. Like, you have to step your game up. You have to get to my level here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're like, I think that's just kind of a symptom of the book jumping around quite a bit. Like if you had stayed with this story and what was happening between them, I think you could have fleshed that out a little bit of like, hey, thanks for coming to the one show. That means a lot. But also this is the only show you've been to. Like, this is just your first step, right? Like, but the book doesn't really address that. It's just like, all right, gee, thanks. On to the next one, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that I think is kind of the real downfall of this book of just like, I like these stories. I like what's happening here a lot. I wish you would just dig in a little deeper, like slow down just a tiny bit.
You get a great amount of variety.
Mm-hmm.
You get a good variety of tones. Like it's never that serious and dark. And you do get some like very fun little adventures, like all the clothes coming together to form like some sort of a spectral magician. You get really wacky stuff thrown in there.
The
and
braces.
I like that. Yeah, there's a flashback story to like teenage Zatanna getting braces. And it's like the day she gets them and she's just spitting all over the place and she can't talk to get a spell out. So she's like at the mall having a milkshake and she has to like physically chase down like a robber and just like attack him.
She picks up the speak and spell from the toy store. So she types in what she wants it to say and then has it say the spell for her, which is also interesting to think about, that she doesn't physically need to be the one to say the spell as long as it's coming from her. Mm-hmm. She's kind of like imbuing this speak and spell thing, which I guess ironically has the name spell in its name, right?
Yes.
But yeah, it's like she can use this as this like intermediary, like this is speaking for me. Here you go. Here's my spell. And it's like the spell was to have her braces become a cage and to trap the bad guy. And so this like almost like train track looking thing out of her mouth just starts like spewing out and captures him. And it's gross, but it's so funny.
And then, of course, after that, she's to go back to the orthodontist and get her braces fixed.
Yeah. They have to like snip it off of her and be like, all right, let's do this again.
And she's wearing this like very cute 90s outfit with this big blossom hat with the flower on it. It's a fun little story.
Yeah, it's good. It's good indeed. Any other kind of stuff that you wanted to pull out here that we skipped over or something?
I like that it's set in a specific city, which did surprise me because I know DC is a lot more fictional cities, but Zatanna is in San Francisco, Las Vegas, like new real Earth places that we have.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know how that cooperates with like Central City, Gotham, Bloodhaven, and all that. But it does seem like it tries to have a very specific sense of place that you don't get in DC Comics. Like she's commenting on like real things and like the real way San Francisco feels, which is nice. I didn't expect to have that.
It's interesting because I think if it was set in a fictional city, it wouldn't necessarily hurt, but there is something about the like, no, this is a place, this is San Francisco, but there's magic here, right? There is something kind of special about that being like, I can physically go to that space and like be in that space, and maybe there's magic around the corner here. But if it was like Gotham, I can't go there, so I guess I can imagine whatever, right? And it's just like, all right, sure, there's magic there, I believe that. I just have to take you at your word. But there's something special about like I can go touch that place, right? So I think that's neat that they did that and stuck her in a real city.
I really enjoyed my time with Zatanna. I would love to see her brought to live action in this new DC universe. I think she's a great character to maybe build a TV show or something around. That way you can really spend the time with her career side of it and see her go to all of these different places and take all of these different gigs and play for all these different audiences.
Yeah.
Because that is a really interesting interaction with her more magical life. Like there's a story where these like witch hunters do come for her and she's like attacked out of nowhere. Somebody like tries to shoot an arrow at her, and she's running through the theater at night after everybody else has gone home, and she's like, who is this? Who is attacking me? Who is my enemy right now? And she thinks, I spent the last week performing for brand new clients. I didn't know any of those people when I stepped into those rooms. Anybody could hire me as a chance to get closer to me and learn something about me. And if they say like, oh, you're here as a fundraiser for sick children, she's like, I would go and I would do it. And I wouldn't ask 2 questions about it. They know how to get me. They know what my weakness is, that I love to do this for people. And I won't think about it immediately as a threat.
Yeah.
I think that's very promising.
I really hope we get to see her in live action. She's fun. Lots of fun, especially with Marvel having some good luck with WandaVision and Agatha all along. I think the more magical sides of comic book universes are starting to be the like, hey, let's start introducing that. It's not just superpowers, it's magic, right?
Yes.
Fun. So good stuff. Zatanna. I had a blast. It was good. Cool. Let's see here. Let me pull up Bingo and see if we got anything for that. Switch us over. There we go. Pop Idol. We didn't see one, but there's the story of her trying to work next to, who was it?
Oh, Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett.
She's playing Vegas at the same time Tony Bennett is playing Vegas, and she's mad that she's not in his venue. Right. And like that arc ends with him sending her a card and flowers like, here's to the new toast of the town. Yeah. He's like, I bow to you, Zatanna. And Zatanna herself is an idol in this world, which I wish we did spend a little bit more time with her role as a celebrity, not just in how busy it makes her career, but like the sort of headspace that puts her into.
Yeah.
Being so well known. Yeah, I take Pop Idol.
Sure. I
can get Deal with the Devil and Occult Crimes.
Indeed. I also have Magic Book on mine. Let's see here. What about Mysterious Scar? I feel like that's a tough one.
Yes.
Because yes, Colton does have the scars, but we don't know that until the reveal at the end. So it's not like there's a mystery that
you've already been told what they mean before you learn that he has them, and you're like, oh, he's that baby that we heard that story about.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that? Because it's not Mysterious Scar in the way that like someone shows up and they just have this big scar over their eye, and you're always like, it's always this this question of like, how did they get that?
It's an important scar, but it's not a mysterious scar. You're right. If you want to save that, we can save that.
I'll save it. Let's see. Didn't have anything time loops.
One of my squares is clandestine meeting at theater, which I intended in the way that like you'll see in a spy movie where, there's 2 secret agents who have to meet at like an opera, and they're just sort of like quietly talking to each other in their box seats next to each other at an opera,
Yeah.
Which we don't get here, but that would be a fascinating Zatanna story that like it has nothing to do with her, but she's like, I think there's 2 mob bosses having a meeting during my show. Should I do something about it?
That would be fun. Yeah. Interesting. Let's see. Locked room mystery we don't have. I think that's just kind of about it.
Yeah.
I don't think we got any cows. No cows. not enough cows in the stuff we've watched this year.
Big lack.
Anyways, I think that is about it for our bingo update. So a few more squares knocked off. I don't think we got any more bingos on this one though, but we're getting down to the wire here. So good stuff with all of that. Melissa, what would you recommend to people that enjoyed this? What else might they like?
I mentioned earlier that once a couple years ago on the show, I pitched a set of DC heroine solo titles. And at that time, the one we ended up reading was Starfire. Mm-hmm. This was episode 214. We read this 2015 Starfire miniseries that was written by Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti. In this story, Starfire moves to Key West, Florida. And she's like, it's time for me to learn more about Earth customs, live on Earth, take Earth job. I'm going to be an Earthling.
Yeah.
And it's just this fish out of water story where she goes to this little town and tries to fit in and like saves people from hurricanes and like actual Floridian threats, alligators and stuff. And there's like more superhero cosmic stuff in there, but a lot of it is just Starfire adjusts to life. It's just a very light little slice of life story. We finished it and we're like, this is the only comic we'd ever describe as being a beach read. Comics and beach reads are not often literary circles that oversect, but that one did.
Right. Yeah. Good, lighthearted, fun beach read. Indeed.
Also, for comics we have talked about before, last year on like 3 or 4 different episodes, we made this one of our ongoing monthly series. We read all of the Mike Mignola run on Hellboy.
Yeah.
More dark magic, more demonic deals, more, I know you say I have a destiny, but like, just leave me alone and let me drink and sleep. I think that's our favorite genre of hero is please just let me sleep.
Yeah, that's a great one.
We love a tired person.
I wasn't even supposed to be here today.
Mm-hmm. In that vein, there's 2 book series that came to mind. I love the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. Got all those on my shelf back there. The Dresden Files is it's an urban fantasy series about Harry Dresden, Chicago's only professional wizard. And he's like legitimately a wizard. He's got all these magic powers and he works as like a PI doing really small things like, yes, I will magically help you track down your missing wedding ring. Like very small scale stuff like that. And he just gets pulled deeper and deeper into these like underground things with like vampire cabals and like fairy courts. He remains, please, I am so tired. I have so few resources, but I need this money so bad. So yes, I'll help you fight this werewolf.
Awesome.
I love those books a lot. Really interesting magic systems. The way it works there is that you can't think of spells in your own language. Otherwise, if your spell to light a fire would be light a fire, and like while you're just going about your day and you're like, okay, gonna light some candles, you could accidentally like light something on fire. You have to have like a separate language for how you say spells to make sure like you never do it accidentally. Like it's always purposeful. It has to be something a little unfamiliar and unnatural to you.
That's
so like he uses So like he uses Latin, but characters use all kinds of languages. Somebody will just be like, I picked Japanese or I picked ancient Egyptian. And they will pick things that don't have anything to do with themselves so that they're never thinking in the language that they use for spells.
Just a side question in that, does any of those magicians then learn enough of the language where they do start thinking in stuff or dreaming in that? And does that affect things?
Not yet.
Interesting.
But the potential is there.
Yeah, cool.
There's also a series of books, Anita Blake, Vampire Hunter? I forget her exact title that is the subtitle of this. These are by Laurel K. Hamilton. These I read a couple of in high school because
okay.
they're set in St. Louis.
Oh, nice.
She goes to, like, all the vampires live on Laclede's Landing. Like, they're places I've actually been. And Anita Blake is a necromancer. And you first meet her, like, she has to, like, raise a corpse from the dead to ask a question about, like, their will or something.
Mhm.
Like, you can, if you have, like, a will dispute, you can hire her to raise somebody from the dead and, like, get their legal confirmation on something. It's a for-hire job. She has to do it, but she still has to do all these rituals. She's like, I've got all these amulets and chicken blood, and it's 3 a.m. under a full moon. Again, I'm so tired. I just want to go home. I read the first couple of these. I know it's a very long-running series that gets more and more horny as it goes on, to where by like book 15, she's in a polycule with a vampire and a werewolf and like a were-jaguar.
Gotta do what you gotta do sometimes, you know?
Right. Because of the local connection, I've always wanted to like go back to these at some point. I only read like the first couple of them, but
that's fun.
Another book about just a magical working woman.
Sure.
And
stuff.
then can't talk about a magician book without me mentioning The Prestige and you mentioning The Illusionist. We've each picked a side. And one detail of Zatanna's house that I really loved is that she has these wall sconces that are being held by arms, which is imagery pulled exactly out of Jacques Cousteau's Beauty and the Beast, the old black and white Beauty and the Beast. Check that out. I haven't seen that since college, but it's one of those old movies that has informed so many things. And once you see it, it will unlock a bunch of homages for you that you didn't know were homages.
Cool. That's awesome. Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's see. Things I would recommend. I have another book by Paul Dini. This is Black Canary and Zatanna, Blood Spell. This is just a short graphic novel, about 140 something pages, written by Paul Dini, art by Joe Quinones Jr. This was a blast of a book. I own this one. It's a nice little hardcover book. The basic premise is Black Canary had infiltrated a gang of criminals that were planning to rob to do a heist on a Vegas casino. And when that plan kind of blew apart, the leader of that gang ended up dying, but swearing revenge on Black Canary. And so a year later, Black Canary is now being like haunted by this ghost. And so she's like, Zatanna, can you help me with this ghost? I don't know what to do. And yeah, that was a blast of a book. Go check that one out. More kind of DC Comics, dark magic, but maybe a little bit on the lighter side. Go check out Gotham Academy. This is one of my favorite books. It is a little bit more like what if Harry Potter was set in Gotham City. So it's this school for like dark magic and stuff like that. There's this mystery of kind of what's happening underneath the school. Is the main character related to someone that like died here at the school? You know, stuff like that. And I've always really loved that book. It's a lot of fun. You could also go check out John Constantine. His Hellblazer series by what is his name? Let's see, Hellblazer comic book series. Looking at this, why is it so hard to find who this is by? This is ridiculous. Jamie Delano. There we go. I was like, it's not John, it's something else. I would say go check out those books. That really feels like classic Vertigo comics side of the DC universe. A little bit more adult oriented stuff like that. Which even in like this a little bit more lighthearted Zatanna book, there seem to be like allusions to or references to, like just more adult themed stuff on the magic side. We got that one glimpse into hell, and everyone is in like bondage gear. And it's just like, oh, all right, cool, have fun, do what you want to do.
You also get a Saturn eating his son in hell, which I made note of, but I had already crossed off homage to famous painting from our bingo card.
Right.
But
indeed.
We got it again. I took note.
So go check out John Constantine, even Swamp Thing, if you want to do like Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. That has some real good stuff, and it's a little bit more on the horror side of things too. That's some good fun DC comics there that you can check out. You mentioned stuff like the Prestige. That's always a great pull. Trying to think what else. I it's not the exact same, but I would also go watch the iZombie show. I don't know. It just it has kind of similar vibes. I feel like. I don't know. Right? She has to keep a job, but it's kind of loosely horror, but also like she's a zombie and has to eat people's brain. I don't know. Go check out iZombie. It's good fun.
That's whenever you do get a car, that'll be the bumper sticker you put on the back.
Go check out iZombie.
Local iZombie advocate.
It was a fun show, all right? Can't help it. Good stuff. Cool. Well, that's all our recommendations for right now. So Melissa, will you introduce us into what we will be talking about for our next episode?
Yes. Next time here on the review show, we will be watching the X trilogy. We will be watching Ty West's recent horror films, X, Pearl, and Maxine. I have seen all of these. Kyle has not.
I have not, yeah. I know you've been recommending them to me, despite me not really being a horror fan. I'm a horror baby. I'm a huge wimp. And you were like, I think these are worth it for you. Like, I think you would really, really like these. And we had talked about doing them earlier when Maxine was in theaters, to which I was like, what if we save them for Halloween? Like, those would be good spooky month times.
They're not that spooky. They're
it's a horror. You know what I mean? Horror movies, spooky movies. You don't need to be like jump scare to be horror. But yeah, finally diving into these. You've like I said, you've recommended them multiple times. I've heard nothing but good things.
There's a specific thing in X that is a thing we've encountered before on the review show that you got a real kick out of. So I wanted to make sure you saw it.
Perfect. Yeah, and like I've said, I've heard a lot of great things about these movies. I know nothing about them.
Okay.
So I may have heard one or two things that once I see it, like, oh yeah, I remember someone talking about this once. But yeah, I really have no idea like what the premise of these are off the top of my head. So I'm excited.
Nice.
Should be good.
This will be fun to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks. I think you had said one of them is out on Netflix. Where you can check it out currently.
Pearl is on Netflix. I did not. A cursory Google did not show me X or Maxine streaming anywhere, at least that I had access to. So those you may have to pay to rent. As always, check your local library. You never know what they got there. They have new releases. Maxine came out like 4th of July weekend. So I'd think by now it's on Blu-ray. That's how quick those turnaround times are nowadays.
It should be, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Cool. Well, yeah, that's what we will do in 2 weeks' time. So I'm looking forward to that. But let's wrap things up right there. Melissa, where can the people find you on the interwebs?
You can just send me an email the old-fashioned way. Write to me at yourhostmelissa@gmail.com.
Indeed. If you guys want to follow me, I am at Yo Kyle Springer. And if you would like to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at the Whatnauts, we are at the Whatnauts Official on Threads. So please go like, share, and subscribe. You guys know the deal with all of that stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube, more videos on that side of the screen. Go check them out. That'd help us out a ton as well. And yeah, this has been number 303 of the Whatnauts review show. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.